One really important part of the marketing research process is to be sure that you have a clear understanding of the information that already exists around a particular topic or research question that you're interested in exploring. And you do that through the use of secondary research and reviewing secondary data. Secondary data is information that already exists that has been collected for some other purpose. So the Census Bureau is a great example of a place where you can get really good secondary information. One of the dilemmas with secondary data is that it may or may not be relevant or specific enough for the question that you have at the moment. But certainly you can always get some clues and some base information, if nothing else, from a secondary research search. And there are many, many places where you can get secondary information. You can purchase secondary information as well from like commercial marketing research firms, but there's a vast array of free information available. One of the really important things about secondary data is that you need to evaluate it to make sure that it's high quality and good usable information. So, when you think about critically analyzing secondary sources of information, here are a few things to remember. That, a fancy, great website or awesome graphics don't always mean that the information is good. It doesn't mean it's bad, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the information is solid. Statistics don't always mean that it's truthful information. You can have statistics that have been collected or information that's been collected in a with really bad research practice, and it can be inaccurate. So you have to, pretty much question anything that you see. And you have to remember with any kind of research, there's no such thing as complete neutrality. Uh, so research will always have some element of bias in it, even good research. And so you just have to go into it knowing that. Um, if there's been weak methodology used in a study that you're reading about, that certainly will raise suspicion. If the sample wasn't very large, say they only sent a survey to a small number of people, but they're trying to make really big generalizations from that, that would be something that would definitely make me suspicious about the quality of the data. However, strong methods really inspire a lot of confidence. So if you can tell that there's been a rigorous research process applied, then you can feel more confident that the results are good. So here is a checklist of questions that you can ask yourself when you're trying to evaluate marketing research for quality and validity. So it's a big list. I'll hit a few highlights here. Essentially, you want to know who conducted the research, maybe who paid for it, because that could introduce some bias. How was the information collected? How big was the sample size? But if there is no other question that you ask yourself, the one in pink is the really important one, and that is this research published in a trusted, reputable publication or website or through a trusted database? That's a really important question. And if your information comes from a trusted source, say like the Pew Research Center, yeah, that's going to be pretty good information. Does a place like the Pew Research Center make mistakes in their research? Yes, sometimes, but they always own up to that, and you'll get information about it if it happens. But generally, that kind of a place is you can feel confident about using that research. However, if you found some information just on a website through a Google search and you've never heard of the website before, and I mean, that's where you have to do a little more digging and see if it's good information. Can do they draw their information from another trusted source? So you have to do some checking then. My last couple of thoughts here is that you have to remember that all research is flawed. Nothing's perfect. And the question you have to ask yourself is the information at hand good enough for my purposes? And there's lots and lots of good information available. And so you just want to be careful about the sources that you pick. So we are going to talk a little bit more about the kind of secondary sources that you could be using in this class for the projects that we'll be doing, and there's a separate slideshow for that where we talk about some good sources of information and some resources you can use through the library.